Hey everybody, Jimmy Smith. This time with my thoughts on all the drama surrounding Conor McGregor, Michael Chandler, of course, the canceling the press conferences, videos of him partying everywhere. Let me start from the very beginning here. Part of the issue is with Conor McGregor, you're dealing with someone who has shown a history of self-control issues, right, of various kinds. We're also dealing with someone who has made a lot of money and has spent a lot of time partying and getting in trouble doing that. So that's kind of your base here, which is people tell you who they are. You just have to listen. You just have to pay attention. And if this were someone else with this speculation, these problems, maybe it would blow over or we'd have some other explanation for it. This is a guy with a long history of poor decision making. When Dana White, when asked about this, obviously at the 302 post-fight press conference, said, well, Conor's not dumb. Well, it's not smart to throw a dolly at a bus either. It's not that Conor's dumb. It's that Conor has a history of impulse control problems. And this could be another one of those, that he's out partying, having a good time when he should be training. Now, do fighters party on the weekends when they're training? Some do, some don't. But there's an important caveat here that I want to deal with when it comes to Dana White's comments again. He said John Jones partied and won fights. Here's the deal. That gets harder and harder and harder as you get older. Where you can, and I've seen it myself many times, fighters, party and have a good time when they're in their early 20s, get up, train, wash, rinse, repeat. When I was with Team Punishment in early 2000, Tito Ortiz and Rico Rodriguez and Ray's Rob McCullough and those guys, they partied hard. They partied hard, but they won fights, and they could party and train and party and train. And I remember interviewing Rob McCullough when he went into Bellator to fight Patricky Pitbull. He remembered me when we were talking about those days. And one of the things he said it publicly in the interview for Bellator, he said, you can do that when you're in your early 20s, mid-20s, and then your training starts doing this. Your body can only handle that for so long. Conor's 35 years old. And if you've been around addiction, if you've been around alcoholism and stuff like that, your tolerance goes down, your ability to recover goes down. A lot of overdoses happen when someone's trying to get clean, and they think their tolerance is the same, and it's not. Right? You're off for 6 months. You do the same amount of drug that you did a year ago when you were doing it consistently, and it's too much for you. It's a similar kind of thing where, can you party on the weekends and train? Sure. Can you do it in your 20s and win? Yes. You can do it in spite of that. At 35, 2 years off, severe injury, all of those things. 2 years, is it 3 now? Jesus. That's the thing that's going to get to him. This is a guy who I think, all things going extremely well, and he's training and he's focused and he's dialed in, all of those things together with the time off, and I don't think he's looked good in his last few fights anyway, before the injury. All those things together, I'd say he's in a tough position. That's the background for all this stuff. Even though Conor is maybe not doing anything horrible, canceling a press conference is not the end of the world. It's the idea that he's already in a position where a lot of things have to go really well. He can't afford the variables he could have maybe afforded in the beginning of his career when he was in his 20s. So let's keep that in mind. When it comes to partying, have we seen him, totally out of it completely? No, but he's at an age and in a condition where he can't afford a lot of mistakes. And we're seeing that. And once again, this is somebody who has had a history of problems. So the idea that he's playing some kind of three-dimensional chess, which I've heard from various fans, which is absurd. He's out, but he's not drinking. He's trying to make it look like he's partying when he's really not. If a fighter looks like they're out partying, they're out partying. Right? This is not Magnus Carlsen. We're not dealing with a chess world champion. All right? This is a fighter. And if he looks like he's out partying, he's probably out partying. Also, Michael Chandler is a very, very disciplined guy. No matter how Conor McGregor looks or what Conor McGregor is doing, Michael Chandler's going to be at the gym training. He's not going to go, boy, this is going to be easy. Look at this guy partying. I think I'll take the day off. That's not Michael Chandler. So the idea it's going to have effect on Michael Chandler's preparation is absurd. He's trying to outthink Chandler and get him to think something that isn't true. That's ridiculous. All right, Chandler's going to be at the gym. He's at the gym right now, I'm sure. So that's the partying aspect. The canceling of the press conference. Ariel Helwani came out and said there's nothing sinister to it, according to his sources. That, there's nothing salacious. There's nothing big. There's no big injury. There's nothing like that, according to his information. Ariel's information is pretty good. Now, DC on the good guy, bad guy podcast thing that they're doing, Chael Sonnen and Daniel Cormier. Cormier said his sources are super tight-lipped. No one will say anything. And he said, which is true in my experience as well, when no one says anything, something's usually wrong, right? So DC is kind of fallen on the side of him canceling the press conferences is a sign that something's really bad. An injury would get out pretty quickly. That's the one thing, because if you had an injury, you're not training all by yourself. You're with sparring partners, you're with training partners, you're with, people in camp. The idea that the lid would still be on it, it's possible, but the stuff like that tends to leak very, very quickly. We don't know why the press conference was canceled. But Chael Sonnen said in response to this that it's he believes it's a sign that Conor McGregor is super focused and doesn't want to take time away from his training. Guys, because he canceled a bunch of media obligations at the same time. Guys, when he was doing his media obligations for previous fights is when he's at his best. Did a lot of media for the Jose Aldo fight. Look what he did in that fight. So the idea that he canceled all his media obligations, therefore he's really dialed in training, we've seen previous fights where he did a bunch of media. So he was dialed in and doing media. It's not mutually exclusive. So we don't know. I am one of those people. From the beginning, I have said I will believe Conor McGregor is going to fight when he walks into the octagon. There's always that, I'm 80% sure that he shows up to this fight and fights, provided he isn't seriously injured or something's wrong. But still, there's always that sliver of doubt with me. There's always that, does he really want to do this with hundreds of millions in the bank? Does he really want to do this? Does he really want to get in there against Michael Chandler? What's so funny to me is recently DC did a list of like 3 or 4 fights that he wants Conor to do after he beats Michael Chandler, should he beat Michael Chandler. And I went, you can't get this guy to fight once a year. And you're laying out 3 to 4 fights you want to see him in? I would be surprised if he shows up to this one. So it's so funny is the back and forth with Conor of, he cancels a press conference, video of him partying, and DC says, don't be surprised if he doesn't fight. And I said, well, a month ago you were saying, well, man, he might fight these 3 or 4 guys. Guys, one fight at a time, if you're lucky for Conor McGregor. So all of these together are worrying. It's all together, it's a problem. Conor's behavior, Conor's out partying, Conor cancels a press conference. It's all inflated because we know that this guy has had trouble with his discipline before. And he's made some really poor decisions before. And also, when Dana White says, well, John Jones did a lot of dumb things and still ended up fighting, he derailed a lot of fights too with his behavior. Also, I don't see at this point in Conor's career him being certainly a level above the competition. John Jones always was and arguably is. Sure, if you're, people who know, old football fans, LT, greatest defensive player of all time to a lot of people. He was out, smoking crack in between games. Very honest about that. He's that good. He could have a drug addiction and still, sack the quarterback 3 times a game. Conor McGregor is at a point where I don't think he's an elite 55er, period. I don't put him in that top class. So the idea that he can go out and party and do dumb things and still be, we're not talking about prime Conor McGregor. And that picture we all make in our heads of him and what he's capable of is an old picture. And so the idea that the comparison of John Jones to me is ridiculous because John Jones was doing that in his prime at his best and he was a level above everybody else. So yeah, he could party on the weekends and still win fights. I've seen fighters win fights despite a lot of personal problems and addiction problems and difficulties, but they were usually a level above the field. I don't put Conor in that class. Can he beat Michael Chandler with diminished skills? Maybe. He certainly can. He needs to be in the gym working on it. And we don't know if that's the case right now. With the cancellation and everything, we just don't know what's going on. But the track record isn't good. You're not going to outwork Michael Chandler. You have to out-time Michael Chandler. You have to be more accurate than Michael Chandler. And that takes a lot of work in the gym. And I don't know if he's still willing to do that. So these issues and delays and problems and all of it together with some other fighter, we would think maybe that's not a problem. For a guy who's been out as long as Conor McGregor has been out, with the injury he's recovering from, his window and margin for error is like this. and I don't know if he's disciplined enough with all we're seeing to hit the target. But we'll see as the fight gets closer. We'll see if he comes back and we see anything that indicates he's in the gym where he should be. Anyway, like, subscribe. Appreciate all of you. Talk to you soon.